Okay. At this time, I'd like to call the regular Audit Committee meeting of August the 13th to order at the Belle Chase Council Building Chambers at 3:02, and the machine will be open for roll call. Let the record reflect that Councilmember Newberry and myself, Councilmember Roussel, are here. Mr. Konovich was here earlier. However, he had an oil spill, and as you know, his job requires him to respond immediately to an oil spill, so he will be fighting the oil spill probably the rest of the day. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Jason Brown, who's with us today, who has been covering us for some time, that may be on his way to a bigger and brighter future, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will move to item number 2.
Review and discussion of the PPG property lease and internal audit.
Thank you. We'll turn that over to Mr. Duke, and next Mr. Duke to get close to the mic.
Okay. What we're going to do this afternoon is take a review of the property lease and building rentals project number 2020-01. Let's scroll down to page number 6, the executive summary. Okay, this executive summary represents the results of an internal audit of the PPG property lease and building rentals. This audit report concerns 23 parish properties that are leased or managed by certain forms of agreements, and specifically addresses the following: 5 general leases, 3 cooperative endeavor agreements, 9 boat harbor shipyard leases, 3 auditorium leases, and 3 community center rentals. In accordance with the PPG Charter, Section 7.08, the Audit Committee and the approved Internal Audit Department's annual audit plan for 2020, the OIA Office of Internal Audit performed an internal audit of the property lease and buildings rentals. Let's scroll down to the internal audit conclusions and observations. Conclusions: the general leases and boat harbor shipyard leases could be renegotiated if possible on behalf of the parish. Regarding the CEAs reviewed, we should make sure that we're in compliance with Article 7, Section 14C of the 1974 Constitution of the State of Louisiana, in that the public benefit created by this transaction is at least equivalent to the expenditure transferred by the agency. Scroll down to the internal audit observations, policies and procedures manual. The recommendation is PPG contract and agreement written policy manual should be in place and should be approved, hopefully, by the parish president and the council. Observation number 2, the assessor's office adjudicated properties.
But before we go through that, let's try to see how we're going to attack this, because I noticed that we have no response from the administration.
That's correct.
And so without a response from the administration, this is just hanging on the wall.
Well, yes. We always need a response of some sort from the administration, whether it's I concur or whether I don't concur. It's all we really need. In this situation, I sent out the report a month ahead of time, and I checked back with Mr. Lepine's office and gave Mr. Lepine an extra week. I thought, I spoke to his secretary. I think he was on vacation. That was probably, could have been the reason he didn't get back to me. He hasn't gotten back to me at all, though. So therefore, the report has to go out after 30 days. Actually, it went out after 37 days because I gave Ms. Lepine's office an extra 7 days to respond.
Okay, so, go ahead.
Okay, the assessor's adjudicated properties. Recommendation of the parish has acquired tax interest in these 106 adjudicated properties, and if specific procedures are followed, Louisiana law allows the governmental body to sell their tax interest in the property.
And could that be a source of revenue
Yes,
for our general fund?
that's what I was hoping for.
And I see no response there as well.
Right, general leases. Recommendation,
Yeah, on this item,
yes.
we have someone raising their hand in the audience. Do you want to speak on this item?
I want to ask a question about adjudicated properties.
Yes, sir.
Right now.
All right, come on up.
I noticed on there you said it cannot be a revenue source.
It can be a revenue source.
It can be a real good revenue source,
Very
because
good revenue
what we've done in the past in different states, in different parishes, we've put together some issues where we've offered these pieces of property and the tax liens for sale. And that's negotiated all the time. And there's a company in Orleans Parish that specializes in just doing that. Okay? So you can generate some money on that, Mr. Rousseau.
Yes, well, what we need to do is we have to have some response from the administration to how to attack this from the administrative point. Since we've done the work and see that we have 106 adjudicated properties, there's been a lot of talk around here and talk about selling surplus properties and that type of thing when we have 106 here that we could probably
It's just not the properties that you can sell. You can sell the tax liens themselves, or the grass cutting liens, which are revenue sources to you.
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you for that.
Appreciate that. I believe we're on observation number 3, general leases. My recommendation on that would be to ensure that the current insurance certificates are always in the file. All authorizing agreement signatures should be in place. Supporting documentation for the lessee property improvements, if there are any made, should be validated and in the file, and a current appraisal value should always be in the file. I believe it would be helpful if the lessee submitted to the parish at least every year, but I was looking at this particular audit period of 2017 through 2019, a detailed revenue that the lessee receives from the use of these properties. And so that we can compare the revenue we're receiving and our agreement with them with how much they're making on these properties.
Mr. Duke, can we legally do that?
Well, we do have a contract with them, so that would be up to Mr. Rennie to check into it and see if there's a possibility that we could get some revenue for this. If possibly the lessee would, maybe they would want to sit down with us and at least talk about it.
Okay.
You got to get closer to the mic, Mr. Duke.
Yes.
So these are leases that we currently have that
Yes.
you're recommending that we open discussions through the legal department to see if there's an
See if we can
opportunity
bring- Yes, sir.
to renegotiate some of them?
Yeah, bring the lessee to the table and talk to him and see if the parish can get some additional revenue on these, because all these leases have been automatically renewed for years and years and years. We have no idea how much money they're really making from these, but it's my understanding that they're making a lot in some situations. Like, could be millions of dollars, and we're only charging them maybe $30,000 a year. Come on, we can do better than that.
Well, that's going to take an initiative from the administration that, let's see, we have no response on that one as well.
That's correct.
Do we have any responses from the administration on any of this audit?
No, we do not.
Well, that's not,
No, we need to have and I've spoken to management about this.
You want to talk to the mic?
previously. We need, and it's not a big deal,
to the mic?
if I have anything, if they were to discuss my audits with me, And I sent out the audit, and I asked them to respond within 30 days. They have 30 days to get with me on that audit. If they disagree, we'll take a look at why they disagree. If they have additional information to provide to me, and I think my audit report needs to change, I will change it. But it's not going to do us any good if nobody wants to sit down with me and talk to me within that 30-day period, because it gets to a point where I have to just send it out. And it's you have to just concur or not concur. Or you can say, hey, Randy, let's sit down. I think you might have something wrong with this, or you might not be understanding what's going on here with this. So let's just sit down and take a look at it so we make sure the report states things accurately. And we give, as you know, Mr. Russell, we went back and forth with the port on how long we were going to give the parish and the port, how much time we were going to give them. And we decided on 30 days, which is a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Mr. Valley.
Mr. Rousseau, is there any way the public can get a list of the properties that the parish owns and a copy of the leases and all the revenue that's being secured by it in the terms of the lease? Because I've had occasion to look at some of the, because of the high new assessments that's been going on, I kind of did a little survey of some of the properties that I know, because he's looking for money for his marina operation. I just happened to look at the Venice Marina. And you got a tremendous amount of boat houses. You got all the boats that are sitting on water, boat houses. And you're looking at half that thing is sitting there on an old lease that's been around for 30 years. That you get $30,000 a year out of, but yet I'm looking at a boathouse that's being transferred on the rolls for $575,000. And another $578,000, and it goes on and on and on and on. And I'm going, what the hell are we doing with this? You're looking for revenue? Right there. Renegotiate your lease, and let's start look at these properties. But, if we all, from the public, can take time, and I realize y'all are busy too, we'll look at some of this stuff to try to find a revenue for the parish and read it on these leases and help y'all in any form or fashion. I mean, he's looked at them, you've looked at them, and I know you have.
Since we've been sitting here, I've emailed Randy Burris to get a list of the adjudicated properties. So,
It's not just adjudicated. I'm talking about the ones you own that you have abilities to raise money off of. I mean, I don't know if you're tied into a lease that's so onerous that you can't get out of it. But I assume you have the provisions in all your leases for the good of the government quality, that you can terminate a lease for the well-being of all.
So not too long ago, we renewed a lease for a...
Mr. Blink, you want to come to the podium?
Sure. Not too long ago, we renewed a lease for a boathouse down at Port Eads. I believe it was for $260 per year. That was the 1990s agreed upon price. At the meeting, I was saying, hey, maybe we should pump the brakes a second and tie this to a CPI or make sure this, falls in line with where it's at. And, Mr. Duke is absolutely correct. We probably do need to bring these leases in line with what, some of the fair market value is for some of these properties. They're valuable properties. Thank you.
I just caution you, don't discount and try to get the last drop of blood out of somebody. If they're providing a need and a service to the community, that's what we're here for, to serve the people. So consider that when you review them.
I agree.
Mr. Chair, do you think we need to put some legislation out there asking the administration to look at these leases and renegotiate them?
If the administration has failed to respond to the audit and they don't intend to do anything, I guess it would be appropriate to have the council secretary draft a resolution asking the legal department to review our existing leases and give us a report. And we'll ask Mr. Garrett in the back to help with that, to be able to at least open the door to that discussion.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Rob Forshey. My question here, a little earlier, you were discussing that you were communicating with the administration, and he was on vacation. Who were you communicating with while he was on vacation?
Secretary.
His secretary. And so, I guess since we have a couple of directors here in the house, I would have to ask them if they had any communication and any kind of communication with the president or or have y'all had a chance to look at any of this stuff, and do you have an opinion? Either one of y'all.
My name's not on this audit anywhere. I wasn't given an opportunity to respond to any of the.
She's asking you to come to the mic if you're going to talk, but I know that your name's not on it, but I don't know. I would think that you could take some initiative, or someone with this parish would take some initiative to respond to an audit that this man has taken his time, and the audit committee has taken their time to look at, yet the administration and I guess the directors don't care enough about anybody's time to go ahead and give an opinion.
Talking to the mic, Mr. Duke.
Yeah, I need to make sure that we all understand Mr. Epley is correct. His name was not on this. The way this normally works is if I am corresponding with Mr. Epley, on a day-to-day basis on an audit, say, for instance, recreational, I would probably put his name on it. In this particular situation, I felt the need to contact directly with Mr. Lapine and also with the parish attorney, because the parish attorney has been involved with contracts with me previously. So I felt, and we have to understand that it trickles down from the parish president to all the directors. If this goes to the parish president, he can, send it over to Mr. Epley or send it over to one of his other directors that he thinks would be more knowledgeable in responding to the audit. And I believe that's what should be done. It should have been done if he wasn't going to respond to it, or if Mr. Rennie and Mr. Burris wasn't going to respond to it. They should have just sent it over to someone else with possibly more knowledge or that was willing to respond to it. I have talked to several directors, and a lot of the directors will not respond to these reports unless they get an okay from Mr. Lapine, the parish president, period.
Well, having said all of that, I see that Mr. Epley is here. His name isn't on the audit, so he must be here for some purpose. Is that to report back to the president? Or do you have some information to offer concerning the audit?
I'm here because part of that audit concerns leases with buildings, and buildings falls under me. Even though my name is not on the audit, I wanted to be here to hear what was going to be talked about with the building leases.
And so when the reach for the information went through the president and legal department, they didn't forward the request to you to supply us with any information?
I supplied information through buildings to Mr. Duke about this audit for the buildings portion of it.
So you have that in the audit?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's interesting, and that seems to me that since I did get some information from Mr. Epley, and this is even though your name's not on the report, if I gave the auditor information, if I was concerned with the report, one of the first things I would do, even if my name wasn't on it, I would give Randy or whoever the auditor was a call, and I'd say, hey, look, maybe my audit, since I gave you some information, Mr. Lapine is not responding to it. Maybe I should respond to it, and then we could have gone forward that way.
So
I think that whoever gets these reports, and maybe Mr. Epley didn't get the report at all. I think that's what he's saying. But Mr. Lapine and his secretary should not probably, send it on down to the directors that have the knowledge to respond to it. And so it should have been sent down to Mr. Epley to respond to it, and he would have contacted me or responded accordingly.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get the line of communication straight so we can get some response, because it says no response on a lot of these items. And if Mr. Epley provided information,
right,
was he prevented by somebody to prevent a response to you?
No, but probably Mr. Lapine probably should have sent the report to his directors, and I'm sure Mr. Lapine knows that Mr. Epley is in charge of the buildings and contracts.
I think we're speculating, Mr. Duke, so let's move on.
Okay.
we can move on, but we didn't solve anything here. We try to get some communication going
Well,
here,
I think
one way or
the
the other.
process is
There
that
is no
Mr.
communication.
Lapine, the parish president, is responsible for responding, or his directors are responsible for responding
Yeah.
to all audit reports. That's
Okay, so, would you address the questions to us rather than to the audience?
Okay, well, I just, already, and I just wanted to reiterate, I didn't mean this directed directly at these two gentlemen. It's just that they were here, and so that's the reason for my question
But what we don't
in that
want to
direction.
get into an audience discussion among yourselves. You need to address the committee, and we will try to take it from there and ferret out the answers that we can get.
Yeah,
I will, thank you.
let me just say this, too.
Talking to the
Let me
mic.
make sure that we all kind of understand where I'm coming from. I'm trying to work together with everybody at the parish. And I'm not trying to ding anybody at the parish at all. In this audit report, I'm trying just to gather some extra revenue. So in my opinion, if someone takes a look at the report, they should get in touch with me and want to discuss it. If they know anything about it at all. If they don't know anything about it, then they can't do it.
Well, Mr. Duke, I know you work really hard on these audits, and I appreciate that. You do a great job. Thank you.
All right, next.
Okay, basically the Port Harbor and shipyard leases is basically the same as number 3, as observation number 3. We can go into it, discuss it a little bit, ensure that the insurance certificates are in the file. All authorizing signatures should
Mr.
be.
Duke, while we're on that subject, you audited 2019, so it doesn't reflect the increase in rates and all that was passed by this body just recently in the last month or so
For
the shipyard.
the shipyards, no, that's correct.
Okay, so there was some improvement made there that won't reflect in this audit.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Blink.
Sure. A constituent came to me not too long ago who has a lease to or is paying this licensing fee to move seafood across the dock at the parish harbors. I think they're paying $2,400 a year or so, but he says there's no designated spot to have his transaction taking place. Alligators over the dock, crawfish over the dock, that kind of thing. No floodlights, no bulkhead, no place to tie the boat up, no security, just the fee. Is there, I don't know if there's a proper venue to find an answer for that, but are we opening ourselves up to exposure by not providing that part, not upholding our end of the bargain there?
I don't know what the other end of the bargain is. If he's not leasing property from us, then it wouldn't be in this document because that's what he audited. He didn't audit contract for alligator skins or something crossing somewhere that doesn't even have a physical location. I'd never heard of that before.
Sure. We're charging folks $2,400 a year, to move wholesale seafood through Plaquemines Parish harbors, but there seems to be no physical location for them to actually
Is there
do
an ordinance on the books to do that?
that. There is, yeah.
Then I would suggest that you pull that ordinance and let's review it.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Valley.
Okay, so let's see, where did we leave off here?
Mr. Valley has one more
Excuse
question
me, I got a question for you.
for us.
In that review that we did and looking down there at the marina, there's what used to be referred to as a shrimp dock that was there, or it's still there, but there's no revenue coming in from it. Did you pick that up?
I believe that's in the body of my. Let's take a look. You're talking about Venice.
At Venice Marina.
Yeah,
Let's take a
let's
look at
move on to, when we get to that, we'll come to you.
Oh, you haven't got to, I'm sorry, I thought you were there.
Okay. Okay, so, the insurance certificate should be in the file. Really, let me explain this. When an auditor asks for information, especially on contracts,
You want to pull that up to the,
there's certain things that should always be in the file.
can you move that mic up to you?
Yes, sir. There's certain items that should always be in the file that is provided to the auditor, or they're liable to get dinged on the stuff that's not in the file. So, such as current insurance certificates should always be in the file. The contract should be appropriately dated and executed. always. If you have improvements to the property, they should have information in the file that validates the cost of those improvements, as well as a current appraisal value of the property should be in the file. Now, this other item that I have, asking the lessee for a detailed revenue received, from their properties, they probably won't want to give that to us. However, that would give us a good idea, such as the Venice Marina, which has all kinds of stuff going on, and we're only receiving a very small portion of all that money, which I think is considerable. And we can take a look at the body of my report and look at what they're doing, and the amount of revenue that they're probably receiving from the parish's property. And we're not getting that much money for it. So, the file should be complete. Anytime the auditor asks for a file, it should be as complete as possible. If the person doesn't know what should be in the file, give the auditor a call, and he can tell them what he's expecting to see in that file.
Mr. Duke, as a public entity, do we have a right to see their income tax on?
I'm not talking about income tax.
Well, it would show their revenues.
Yeah, I think we would. In negotiating the contract in the first place, we could have asked for that.
Yeah, I think that, I know we have a contracts department.
Yes.
With a contract administrator. But I don't think that, and then we also have a land department. And I'm not sure that we're hitting all of the boxes in those departments to come. I'm reading you, we have to have a current liability insurance certificate. In some instances, the agreement signatures are not even dated.
Right. Yeah, we really do need, I think, a separate insurance department with a person that has that kind of experience for PPG, and several people working for him, because you have a lot of contracts that need to be looked at. But you need a department. That should be another recommendation.
Right, but we have two individuals in different positions that should probably be working together.
Well,
a contracts administrator.
Yeah, that's her title, contract administrator. But, if you read her job description, it's not exactly a contract administrator.
Under civil service? Under civil service?
Okay.
Well, I think that, we've talked about and heard about reorganization and, economies of scale and that for a couple of years now. We heard about it throughout the Cormier administration. We haven't heard a lot about it recently. But as far as this type of work, I think that, the legal department needs to get its hands around this contracting situation. Especially if we have contracts or agreements that are not even dated. I don't want to belabor the point, but I see there's a lot of potential here for revenue, as well as simple obligations of completing the file. So let's move on.
Okay, so the shipyards, boat harbors is similar recommendations, or really the exact recommendations as number 3, as observation number 3. Okay, so cooperative endeavor agreements. We need to make sure, that we're in compliance with the state constitution. That's the key. And if someone comes in, the legislative auditors or an outside auditor comes in, we've got to be able to prove to them that we're not donating property to someone. We have to prove that. Okay, so auditorium community rentals. That was I looked at the ordinance that was done. It's very good ordinance, that increased the rental revenue. It's ordinance number 19-121. The monitoring procedures on this ordinance are very good. So my recommendation is to continue doing what they're doing. They're doing a very good job, and just make sure that we adjust that, every year for inflation. And I think they are doing. Pretty sure. I know they are doing that.
I noticed on here, like, for instance, on the transactions of 2019, the Bell Chase Auditorium,
Yes.
it was utilized 90 times?
90 times for a total revenue of, in 2019. So per transaction was $222.83.
That was the average figure
That's,
for one use
per,
of the...
Per transaction, that's correct.
Now, 90 times out of 365 days makes me think that there's some potential to grow there.
I would think so, yes, sir.
So I'm not sure how the booking is handled, but, I mean, is there...
Well, as soon as the way I found out is they have a contract, you know, with the person who's renting it, and you know, whoever wants to rent it, they come in and they fill out their contract, and they go from there.
Yes, Mr. Eberly.
Mr. Roosdale, the 90 times that the Bell Chase Auditorium was rented out was for the year 2019 that we're looking at. A lot of those bookings were still under the old ordinance, which had the $5 repass, the $15 if you're a nonprofit group. We eliminated that when we changed the building ordinance. So now moving forward, this year, we would have collected double that amount basically, but we had COVID, and then we couldn't rent out the building like we needed to. But we are actively working to make sure that we collect what we're supposed to get.
But I guess the question I have is 90 uses, so those repasses and all wouldn't have showed up in those 90 numbers?
They are in that number, yes, sir.
They are? Well, I mean, I would hope that we could, well, not under these current...
That's what I'm saying. That's why the revenue is less. It should be a minimum of $450. It's $150 an hour with a $3 minimum. Mm-hmm. So for each time it's rented, it should be a minimum of $450. The reason it's not is because of those things.
Right. But I'm more focused on the 90 uses. How can we bump the 90 uses up to 150 or 180 or whatever? I mean, is there some type of way that we can encourage, or is there, you know, in the past I've heard that, you know, we want to have a wedding and we want to book it a year in advance. And then people book it a year in advance and then they cancel the wedding or the event. And then we got a dead weekend.
But there's a cancellation policy in the new ordinance too. So if they cancel 6 months out, they get a portion of their deposit back. If they cancel a month out, they get none of their deposit back. So we have put something in place to discourage people from booking a year ahead of time and then canceling at the last minute.
All right, so we're on the right track for that, for sure.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Duke.
Good. Okay, so that concludes my review of this, the property and lease report, internal audit report.
Okay, I'm not sure where we head from here, other than trying to get the administration to step up to address some of these issues as far as management goes and managing these properties and reviewing these contracts. So I would imagine that Ms. Newberry made a comment about some legislation. We could probably put something to urgent request of the administration to move in that direction. So put that on your list for some potential legislation. Thank you. All right, we'll move to the next item.
Discussion of compensatory time policy.
Okay, Mr. Duke.
The PPG compensatory time, let's take a look at that. And if you've had a time to review these slides, let's go ahead and, you know, if you have any questions on any one of these slides from 1 to 17 or from 2 to 17, we can go to each slide that you have a question about and discuss it. Otherwise, I'd like to go all the way down to slide 18 and review the brief summary relating to these slides. Okay, so the conclusion, a brief summary of these, all of these slides. Number one, comp time is accrued at the rate of 1 1/2 hours paid off for every hour of overtime that's worked. An employee agreement is required. When an employee uses comp time instead of cash overtime, it may not allow employees to accrue more than 240 hours of comp time. 480 hours of employee works in public, if the employee works in public safety or a seasonal activity. Once an employee accrues 240 or 480 hours, as the case may be, any additional overtime must be paid in cash. Employers must allow employees to use accrued comp time within a reasonable time of making their request. Employees may send employees home or require them to use comp time before sick or vacation time. Comp time never goes away. Upon separation, it must be paid out. Employees may award exempt employees who work a greater number of hours than scheduled with paid time off. In contrast to the FLSA comp time for non-exempt employees. Now, exempt employees, bonus time off may be credited at any rate and is subject to any conditions the employer chooses. They name, for exempt employees, comp time is named bonus time because it's basically illegal for exempt employees. So that's the way they get around the FLSA.
How does this conflict or compare to civil service rules? Do civil service rules follow any of this?
Nothing on comp time.
Nothing.
Nothing.
And I do remember in the past when we had issues in arguments over comp time. An employee comes up and says, look, I got 200 hours of comp time. I want to be paid for it.
Well,
But there's no documentation.
if you don't have an agreement, then it's no good.
And right now we have no agreement on comp time, so we don't have comp time.
No, you have no time. No agreement equals no comp time.
And no penalty for not having it.
No penalty.
Okay.
But if you have employees that are accruing time, you have to have an agreement in place.
And so we do
You
have
can't
people,
let them use it.
do we have people that are using comp time now
Yes.
with no agreement?
Yes.
Well, that's not good.
So we have no legislation on comp time.
That's correct.
But it's being utilized.
Right. So we could really get dinged for that if it was found out. And I think we need an agreement. I had brought that out in the time and attendance report that we needed an agreement or policy. And so it's been brought to my attention again over the last couple of months or last month. So we need to do something about it.
Well, this is not an audit. This is just your observations because of
This is just some additional information for the committee so that you won't be caught red-handed with something that you don't know about.
Well, the administration needs to look at this to see how it's being handled and if it's being handled across the board in the same manner. And if there's no comp time policy, then no one has comp time.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. It's not, you can't use it.
Okay. All right. Any comments or questions on this item? Hearing none. Move to item number 3.
Okay, the status of the recreation internal audit. I am working on that. I have received all of the information that I need, so I'm writing it up as we speak, and hopefully get that report out in September.
And you've said you've gathered everything you need.
Yeah, I have all the information. They've been very responsive on that, on sending me the information. Very, very good. And so I'm working on it. If I need some additional information, or if I need to speak to, talk to somebody, I'm in good shape.
Okay. Any comments on that? Hearing none, move to item B.
Community action internal audit is in progress. I sent out the notification letter, and I'm starting on that as well as working on the recreation audit.
All right. Have any comments, questions on that? Hearing none, move to item number 4.
Approval of the minutes from the March 13, 2020 meeting.
We have a motion to adopt the minutes of the March 13, 20 meeting.
Second it.
Second by Mrs. Newberry. Any comments or discussion on the motion to adopt the March 13, 2020 minutes? Hearing none. Machine's open. And the minutes are adopted, 2 with 1 absent. Any further business to come before us today? We see none. We'll move to adjourn. Have a motion?
I'll second.
Motion to adjourn. Machine's open.
Sorry about that. Excuse me.
You're penalized in a box. All right. The meeting is adjourned today at 3:43.